As a DM, it can be really tempting to write bespoke adventures for every single thing, use it one time and then never run it again, because you have a set group and you're not running for tons of groups. You think you'll never use it again. The way that I prep adventures is that I think of locations and factions. I define them separately so that they can interact, not so much so that they're reusable or modular, although they are, but so that they can interact, and that is the important part of this video. So what we're looking at on screen is a tutorial dungeon I recently ran on stream. Now this is a very simple layout and it's not meant to be super complicated. Basically on the left is just a room filled with water, like the path goes under it about knee deep and there's chasms on either side. And then there's a room with some storage, some old plants, that sort of thing. There's an engraving of a reptilian queen. Over on the right we've got some braziers and then a puzzle room that has a stone coffin in it. Now, this is a very simple location, but this could be any location that you've used before. When we define a location, we are defining the secrets in it, we're defining the layout, we are defining any puzzles, any history, any lore, all the important things about it as a location, and we are not tying it to a specific inhabitant. We're going to inhabit it with different factions to give it different gameplay. When we define a faction, we're going to define the lower units, the elite units, and then the patrons, which are like the named characters that drive that faction through the world. We're also going to set up major priorities for the faction so we know what they're trying to do in the world. What they care about, can they be bribed, can they be threatened, all of that is baked into the faction so that it's actually completely irrelevant to the adventure. We know how to play those characters anytime they come up. We're going to look at my Salted Bones faction, which is just kind of my generic pirates. There are going to be some spoilers in this document if you intend to play in Season 1. So just don't watch this video if you're going to play in Season 1 yet. So Salted Bones are one of the pirate crews in my world. And something that is unique to all pirates is that they trade their souls to the sea god. So most of their motivations are about getting money and serving the sea god. They're kind of like his agents that can operate on land while he cannot. So most of this document is not going to be lore-based at all. It's all going to be tactics and stats and specific things that I will need to play this faction no matter where they show up. If they show up in my setting, if they show up in post-apocalyptic or futuristic or Care Bears, wherever they go, they're going to be easy to play because we've predefined all of this. This is what my prep looks like. So if we just go through here real quick, we see tactics. When operating on land, these crews will generally operate in 5-man teams. They will send 2 grenadiers, 1 netman, 1 swordmaster, and a marksman. The marksman is usually the leader. At sea, a full ship consists of about 5 squads. They will be led by a captain and a navigator combo. Shellguard will mostly menace from the waters and ensure the ship is not counter-boarded. So already we can look over at our map here and think about what would we put in here if the Salted Bones were present in this location, perhaps trying to get the sword for themselves. We would put a 5-man team, right? 2 grenadiers, a netman, a swordmaster, and a marksman. We might put 2 squads, but we would use the terrain according to how these guys fight. They'll fight differently than tribal elves. They'll fight differently than the Royal Guard. And so they're going to use the space differently. And that is what makes it interesting and easy to mix and match these things. So just using this terrain that we're looking at, I might have the netman and the marksman in the water room. I might have the 2 grenadiers right in front of the engraving. Maybe the swordmaster there as well. And then I might have a navigator. I might have a whole second squad over here in the room with the braziers. But it's going to be based on this basic layout that is right here in Tactics. But we can go deeper. So I said earlier that factions are split into patrons, elites, and grunts. Patrons are your named characters that will be recognizable. They'll take actions in the world. They kind of command everything. In the case of the Salted Bones, we're looking at Agatha. Agatha is the navigator of the Salted Bones. She's a fate weaver. She casts spells. She's got a little lore here that you should not read because it's spoilers. But most importantly, patrons get priorities. Priorities let us know if we can bribe them, if we can threaten them, if we can, what do they care about and when will they flee? It helps us role play the character without having to keep a million characters in our mind. So, in the case of Agatha, priorities obey the sea god because he owns your soul. Revenge for anyone that crosses her is more important than her loyalty to the Salted Bones. That's really important to know. Adventure and wealth. Those are the things she cares about. Now, when we get down to the stat block, there's some interesting things here too. Not just the faction tags or the armor, the weapon, hit zones, the words. No, when we get down to tactics, it tells us how to play that character in combat. So Agatha will prefer to take on a leadership role and use her spells to support her crew. Now, she has an ice knife. She definitely can fight, but she's going to sit back and cast spells while her little guys fight. Now, elites are generally units that lead other units. So in this case, the captain and the navigator. These are unnamed, they're just kind of stronger units. For example, the captain has a saber, a flintlock, a dueling gauntlet, he's got some armor, he's got higher HP, he's got some words, so he's a fate weaver, he can cast spells. But Salted Bones captains have a healthy lack of fear due to their immortality and desire to instill confidence in their crew. They do not fight often and will tend to target the biggest, most imposing target while calling for support from nearby crew. This is important. Having a defined tactic for different kinds of units and for different factions to have defined squads allows your players to learn how to fight them effectively. And they can adapt over time. It doesn't have to be super static. But knowing that the captain will mostly go for the most imposing target will let your players actually play and mess with that like it's a mechanic. If we go down to the grunts, I think the grunts are the most important part, but not always the most interesting part. In the case of the Salted Bones sailor is going to start with an ambush of grenades. If they know that you're coming, if it's possible for them, they're going to hide and then all throw grenades at you. This is going to become a signature move that your players will recognize. After they've fought these guys once or twice, when those grenades drop, they're going to be like, oh man. They're going to know everything else that comes along with these tactics. And these tactics are what's going to make this dungeon play differently. So if the Salted Bones are aware that the players are coming in after them into this crypt, they might wait on the far side of the water and just lob grenades. Let's go ahead and read the whole squad's tactics, just so we get a visual of what that might look like in this dungeon. When an ambush is possible, Salted Bones will prefer to throw their many grenades from concealment to start a fight. All pirates will carry one sword and then their specialty weapon. Swordmasters will carry 2 swords. Grenadiers will carry a sword and 2 grenades. Netmen will prefer to keep trying the net until their target is bound and then stab them up. Marksmen will hang back, possibly even out of the fight, until they can snipe a priority target. So with these tactics in mind, you can think of a dozen different ways to organize this 5-man squad or these 2 5-man squads into this location. But if you have a different location, they'll set up differently. However, they will play similarly so your players can learn and respond to that with their own tactics. We can envision how this very similar layout, this one location that has its own secrets and lore, might play very differently if it's inhabited by the Salted Bones and their grenades, or the Royal Guard and their halberds. Also, the Salted Bones might be bribable. You might be able to just pay them to go away, while the Royal Guard might be on a mission from God or from the king and not be bribable. You might have to fight them. So the same location can take on many different energies. You can even reuse it 2 or 3 times in the same campaign. Totally different feels, totally different experiences, based on who is in it and what they're trying to accomplish. You can have 2 or 3 factions opposing each other in this location, and it will feel very different every time. However, it is critical that you do not reuse a location that has expended all of its lore. If you used up all the secrets, if you solved all the puzzles, you gotta leave it alone. There has to be a reason that both the bad guys and the players are here at the same time, trying to accomplish opposing goals in the same space. In the case of our reptilian tomb, as long as the sword is still in the coffin, or there's some kind of summoning ritual, or there's some undiscovered lore of this place, we can reuse it. The pirates can be here to get that thing, and we can intercept them. The Royal Guard can be here to capture a fugitive out of this place, but there has to be stuff for players to discover along the way. Next time you're preparing a one-off adventure, consider turning your enemies into a proper faction. Whether they're monsters or people, they still have goals. Consider turning your location into something that is less tied to those creatures and has its own secrets and lore and depth. If you do this right, if you learn to play all your enemies differently and give them their own tactics and essence, you can start mixing and matching. And your prep will get easier over time because when you need pirates, you can just grab the salted bones and know that it's already figured out. You just have to read it real quick and play whatever it says. Equally, if you are in need of a tomb, but your world doesn't have reptilians, it's not a big deal. You just grab this map, you grab your salted bones, you slam them together, and you have a good time. Another maybe underestimated feature of designing this way is that you can just think of a really cool location. You don't have to have enemies to go with it. You don't have to know how you're going to use it. You just think of a really sick location, and you design all the details of that when you have a good idea. Same with factions. When you think, wouldn't it be cool if there were octopus people? You just make octopus people, and then you give them goals and priorities, and they can go hang out in the reptilian tomb. They don't need their own adventure to be kind of locked into. Anyway, I just wanted to give you a little look into how I prep things and why it takes me no time at all. So if you give this a try, let me know how it goes.